Day 7 out of the year of meditation. I'm actually recording this on the night of day 6, going into midnight, looks like close to. So I was meditating tonight, and such profound stuff came up that I decided I would stop everything and talk about this right now, because it's pretty crazy, and it's about death and what meditation is making me see or think might be possible as far as death is concerned. Now listen, I have not died that I remember. So I need to start off by saying I know nothing about what happens when you die, and I am not making any claims that I know that. What I am doing is telling you what I'm starting to piece together based on identifying so much of what I'm not and how healing that is for me. Because when you meditate, what really happens is you see this thing here, this story of survival, this thing that really wants to live. And your mind is doing everything it can to survive. It's horrified of everything. It thinks life's going to do things the way that it used to, so it comes up with sabotaging thoughts, like it goes, I hope this thing isn't like it used to be. And then it tries to fix its own thought, even though the thought was just maybe crazy. It goes, I hope that it's not like that again, so I'm going to overcome it and fix it. And that's ego. And I drew this kind of thing, like, picture this being a drawing of a person, like, looking away. There's this person looking away. And if a person was just using their mind only, they would be convinced, like, this is their mind, and this is a timeline of their life. And as far as they're concerned, your mind is thinking linearly. It thinks life started when I was born. Your mind thinks that life started when I was born, and it ends when I die. Now, I'm not saying that's not true, but I just want to think about this for a minute. The only thing that can tell it that life started when you're born is that it has no memory of anything happening before that. That's it. There's no memory before that. Now, if you were born into, the second you were born, you were playing Super Mario Brothers, the Nintendo game. And you had like visors on that made sure that you didn't look away from the TV, and all you did was, right when you were born, play Super Mario Brothers. And when you played with other people, they're also playing it too, and their characters on your screen or whatever. First of all, you would be completely convinced that you were Mario. You would be completely convinced that you were the digital image on the screen. You would have no memory of anything before that. So right when you're born, you're playing Super Mario Brothers. You would think you're Mario. And if some dude who played Luigi stopped playing and just left, he started realizing that he was something more, he walks away, whatever, the character Luigi on your Nintendo game would stop moving, and you would think Luigi's dead. And you would mourn Luigi, and you would be so sad. And your friend could actually still be right next to you. He's just realized he doesn't have to play the game anymore. So you would be convinced that your friend was Luigi, and that who you are is Mario, this two-dimensional dude who's fighting turtles. Well, when you meditate long enough, you start to see that these limitations that your mind has are a total lie. That they come up and say, we gotta survive because I think who I am is what people think of me. I gotta survive because I didn't do this right before. I gotta survive all this crap, right? And when you start to look at it from a new place and you sit there for an hour, your mind is going chaotic, and you're looking at it from this other place that is where you can look from in this moment. And you don't look at it with your mind, because that would be crazy too. You look at it just with whatever already exists, whether you're running it or not, just this thing. And when you actually look long enough at your mind and all these thoughts come in and go away and all these thoughts show up, you start to realize the mind is crazy and you're not your mind, because all these thoughts came up and went away and you still exist. Really think of that. If you have thoughts show up and you're like, oh, no, 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 and then they leave and you're still there through that entire thing, there's no way that who you are is your mind. Your mind is just creating survival mechanisms so it doesn't feel the pain that it felt before. And your mind has falsely linked the pain that it felt before to certain things. So you could get bit by a dog. Like for me, when I was a kid, I got bit by a dog on a street in Seattle. Well, 30 years later, I walked down that street and my mind was trying to save its life again. It was trying not to get bit because it thought that that dog was still going to show up on that street. So it falsely linked that that street equals danger. This is how our mind works. You go into a relationship with someone, they cheat on you, your mind thinks every relationship cheats. So I'm going to have a guard up and protect myself from everything. And your mind doesn't understand that you're taking the trauma that you experienced and then bringing it and thinking it's everywhere. So you're trying to save your life all the time because your mind is falsely linked everything, right? When you observe it long enough, you start to observe it from this limitless, loving space that truly has no limits. And the longer I sit here, now this might sound insane, but sit here for a long time and you'll see it, you feel this absolute infinite space that you're looking from. And the longer you get there, the more you realize you're not the mind. The longer you meditate, the more you realize you're not the mind, the more the infinite space that you're looking from. So if you think you're just this, you're protecting yourself in this linear way, and you're thinking this is the timeline of when my life started, this is when it ends, and I got to make sure I do this tomorrow. What do I, because that's a mind thought, right? A mind thinks like, what do I do? How do I get there? And it thinks always later is better, and it's always in the future, and it's always doing this. But what if you sit here long enough and you realize this whole timeline is BS, and that this entire space, what I circled, you're this entire space that's looking at it. Well, when you sit here long enough, the space starts to have glimpses of such infinite space that it doesn't have any labels anymore. And in those no labels, it doesn't see, there is good or bad. It just is infinite creativity that you are. It doesn't see it as, right or wrong. It's just infinite creativity. You don't want to do anything. It doesn't understand anything but creativity and possibility and flow, right? It also doesn't understand life or death. Those are mind thoughts. Those are mind separation thoughts. The space you're looking from is so infinite that it feels to me more and more like I'm looking at it from the side of death also, like from the space death exists in too. It almost feels like, and I'm not making any claim here, but it almost feels like more and more, I know this is nuts, but you meditate 2 hours a day and you won't believe the infinite powers you find. It doesn't feel like, to me, death is this far away thing, you go away, and it's this giant event. It's almost like we just have had our hand running a puppet since our birth, and when you die, you pull the hand out. And you're still in the same place. It's not like this giant thing. And imagine if you were watching a play from, at a theater, and you're watching a play since birth. Well, then finally when the play's over, you could just go backstage. It's right there. The play seems like this giant show, and you think they're really in the city and they're doing this thing. And then you just go backstage and you can see that, this city is fake. It's just fake stages. It's not a big thing. But it's like the backstage is like right there. And what I'm getting at is you start to realize the creativity that you can bring into the world is so freaking limitless. Because you start creating from the limitless place. You start creating from the limitless place that you are. Once you start to identify the limitations are only set up by the mind because it's trying to survive. And once you realize that you're the one looking at the mind, from where? just feeling the mind, observing the mind, and that as the mind keeps going, it gets quieter and quieter as you meditate, and eventually you realize that it's not true. And you're this thing that's coming from this absolute space of infinite possibility that's even more infinite than the side of where only life is, because only life sees things from birth to death, right? So when you're in the life world, you just see things from birth to death. So your limitation is everything you've seen so far. Your limitation is, I'm going to die when I'm 95, whatever, 90 years old, and my limitation is what I've seen so far. So the most anyone has done, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, these people, that's my limitation. That's the most I can do because that's what I've seen done. It is, and what they did was profound, but it's nothing compared to what you are capable of bringing to the world. All you got to do is just feel, and eventually you'll realize you can go backstage and pick up new props and bring them into the world. Insights, creativity, different things. And as you sit, and you got to sit for a while and really go through this. Like, it's very hard to understand this from the mind. If you're hearing this from the mind, it's insane. I sound nuts if you're listening from the mind, but if you listen from your soul, it's freedom, it's permission, it's everything. So for me, what I accessed was an infinite place where I felt like the mind is just a costume. It's just like a disguise. It's a fake storyline. It's like I feel like there's characters in movies or something where you think they're one thing and then you realize it's not that big. It's like the Wizard of Oz. It's like the man behind the curtain. You think that it's this big deal. And it turns out it's just a dude behind a curtain, like running, like your mind is not, it's just creating false, scary crap. And it's not real. And you're all of this. And you're just wearing your body like it's a shirt, and you're going to wear it for 70, 80 years. And I feel like it's crazy. You meditate, you start to go really far. And some people might go, you went off the deep end. I'm like, no, dude, everyone's crazy. Everyone is choosing. Here's what I also came up with tonight is a revelation that most of our suffering we don't have to have. And it's really sad to me how much nobody knows that, and nobody's really been shown that. Most of our suffering, I'm not claiming all of it, a lot of it though, we don't have to have. Because when you realize that your mind is just showing you this movie and you think that it's real, but you're just watching a movie that you think is real. If you're born in a movie theater and they played an 80-year movie, you would think that was a real story happening right in front of you. It's not. It's a movie. And the second you realize it's a movie, your goal isn't to fix the stuff on the screen. It's to leave the theater. And that's what I'm going through right now. Is just mentally connecting to much more of what I really am. And I can feel my blood changing in my body. I feel it just connecting with the infinite power of what I am. I feel younger. I feel more life in me. I feel more love in me. I feel free. I did a hot yoga class. It was so fast and effortless, and I was able to do more. I can eat whatever I want. It doesn't affect me. I feel like I've tapped into this more invincible place because I'm not stressing, because only my mind is what stresses. The embodiment of what you are never stresses. It doesn't judge. It doesn't label. It doesn't go back and forth. It doesn't compare. It's all there is. It's what you are, and that's what's under this lie of your mind. And if you want proof of that, notice that you believe one thing one day and you believe another thing another day. How could you be your beliefs? They changed and you still exist through all of them. You can't be your body. Your body changes all the time and you still exist through that. So if you think you're this one body type, well, you're going to be really scared when you change your body type. But at one point you had a 5-year-old's body and then another body, and you've existed steadily through all of that. So you can't be the body because it keeps changing and you're still there. So our problem is we identify ourselves as I'm this thing right now, and then we attach to it. But that's not true. It's going to fall apart anyway. So yeah, little insight on what is showing up for me about death. It's absolutely not a claim that I know what's going to happen when you die. I'm just saying your mind creates a lot scarier of a show than it needs to.
Day 7.